What up, roomies? A lot of people walk around carrying things that you can't see. Trauma, pain, experiences that just don't go away. And for a lot of veterans, that weight can even be heavier. Tonight's guest isn't somebody who went through it that she is someone who faced it, worked through it, and now helps others to do the same thing. From serving our country to navigating PTSD to becoming the voice for healing and recovery. This conversation is about strength, growth, and what it really takes to move forward. Monet, welcome to the pod. Welcome to the neighbors. How you
Thank you
doing?
so much. Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. I'm doing
Good, good.
good today.
And thanks for being
How are
on
you?
because I'm doing amazing. I'm enjoying the day off finally. But you know how that
This
goes.
this is your day off. Okay. All right. Looks like
But
you're working to me.
hey, when you do
Mm,
things that you love, it ain't work.
you're right.
You know?
Exactly. That's why any time that I can share my story and potentially help some people, that's a good day. That makes my day, really.
No, it really is. And then on top of that, you got a lot of information, a lot of characteristics to help people, and we want to get into all that. And on top of that, you got a book coming out, so we definitely want to dive
Yeah,
into all of that, right? So
definitely.
first and foremost, give me
Hmm.
one moment. Why did this pop down? All right, what's something that people don't understand about PTSD and that you wish they did?
That it's completely normal
Yeah,
and that a lot of people get PTSD from things other than combat trauma. We hear a lot in the media about combat PTSD, which is extremely important and extremely damaging. But there are other traumas that can cause PTSD as well. Gun violence in American streets
yep,
can cause PTSD. We have combat right here in America. You don't have to go overseas. There's sexual assault PTSD. And that's where I inquired. My PTSD was military sexual trauma. So, and I didn't even know that I had it because I didn't go overseas and I didn't get a chance to serve uh, in actual, combat, but I had combat between another soldier. So that was really eye opening to me.
mhm.
And this is part of my mission to make people aware that you might be dealing with PTSD and you don't know it. So,
Oh man, and when did you realize that you were suffering from PTSD from this assault?
so how it happened for me
Yeah,
was I was married to a combat veteran, and I had heard that combat, soldiers can get PTSD. So living with somebody with PTSD, I went to a vet center, the vet counseling center
yeah.
that is free for all veterans, and they said, we don't want to talk about your husband's service. We want to talk about yours.
Mhm.
And that was when, the knowledge came that, listen, other people other than combat soldiers can have PTSD as well. And I really saw that it was the same symptoms. It was, the hypervigilance.
Yeah.
There's adrenaline seeking behavior, um, maybe perfectionism, um, on top of depression. So PTSD can show up a number of ways, but it's pretty much when it affects your life negatively, when you're having problems with relationships, with jobs, when you're having problems just being alone or being in crowds, that it you finally realize, okay, I've got to do something about this. Um, and again, there are many resources out there, and that's part of my mission too, to not make PTSD this huge stigma and this lifelong disease. It can be treated, and the sooner you treat it, the better.
No, it's true because my cousin, and I've told this story before on the pod. My cousin, he did a tour in Iraq and in Afghanistan, and when he came
Yeah.
back, he was suffering from like some real bad PTSD, and like there was a time that me and the family, we all went out, and unfortunately his PTSD kind of flared up, and he almost choked me out. But
Wow.
my cousins were able to get him off from him, and that's when he started like really seeking help to like calm that down and kind of like move past it. He still hasn't
Mm-hmm.
really moved past it because I know that takes a while for someone to like get the resolution and the resolve they need. You know.
Well, the stats show that the quicker somebody does seek help after a trauma, they might not even develop PTSD.
Okay.
Then also the stats show that women are 50% more likely to get PTSD from a sexual assault. And the military stats show that men are more likely to be assaulted in the military. So, there's a lot of people that have signs of PTSD that could be masking it, right?
Right.
I did a lot of drinking, like I said, adrenaline seeking behaviors, really uh, things that on the outside people say, wow, she's the life of the party. Look at her. But it was really a masking and a self medicating and in an unhealthy way.
Right.
So the sooner that people are aware, okay, something happened, is very traumatic, I need to go get help immediately, you're not going to live with PTSD for the rest of your life. It's not going to have to take the rest of your life. It could have taken a few years, but it does not have to be a lifelong battle.
No, I get that. And do you see that when people are coming out of the service, or like, or when they're serving, that they're more reluctant to actually like sit down with somebody and talk about their trauma versus like them just trying to like work through it, or like do you see like they kind of like isolate themselves?
Yeah, I would say, like, as in the story of your cousin, a lot of people will wait till something really big happens, till a big trigger happens, till a divorce, till, an arrest or something. And people with PTSD are much more likely to be arrested and have criminal justice problems, more likely to be homeless, more likely to be in domestic violence situations. So those can be, all remnants of PTSD. They can all be signs of PTSD. And you might treat that, but you're not treating and talking about the actual trauma that happened in your childhood, or, that happened before. So the more we talk about mental health, and that it's a common thing for people to experience sexual assault, unfortunately, and it's a common thing for people in America now to just experience all kinds of traumas. That it's a normal thing, and there's no shame in talking about it. So the quicker that people address these issues in themselves and find healthy, positive ways to deal with trauma, then it doesn't have to result in multiple DUIs, or run-ins with problems with authority, problems in
Yeah.
relationships.
No, I
um
get that. I got that. So,
yeah.
all right, before we get any deeper, let's go back a little bit, right? What initially led you to get into the military?
So uh I will say, I graduated early. I thought I was going to be going to university. I was accepted into Emory University, but
Hey.
I couldn't afford it. So not only, my grandfather and my uncle served in the army, but really facing financial strains, I thought that this would be the best decision for me, and maybe to carry on a family legacy,
Okay.
and to get the financial assistance that I needed to go to college.
Okay, so it was just to like a means to end, so you could get into college and do what you wanted to do. What was the
Yeah.
experience like while you were serving?
I loved it. I really enjoyed basic training. I enjoyed the camaraderie. I love the physical activity. I really enjoyed, rifle training. I had a lot of fun. I wanted to be a lifer, and I did sign up in time of war, and I was expecting to, see combat. I was fully aware and ready for that mentally. but I wasn't aware for a fellow soldier to put my life at risk. That really threw me off when I was sexually assaulted and physically assaulted by a fellow comrade, fellow soldier. So that put an immediate halt to my career. And even to this day, I don't think things are much different in the military, but it wasn't a safe time to talk about sexual assault. And if you did bring it up, you were um, you were you were harassed, and this is what comes with military sexual trauma. It's much more than just an assault. Um,
No,
so
I
it,
get.
it ends up being a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of trauma that compared to a civilian assault, it's just
Yeah.
another layer that people have to go through, unfortunately. So that's what happened with me, is that I really wanted to forget what happened, and it's hard when you have to work every day with uh, with your attacker, right? So it's got a lot of military sexual trauma has a lot of ties to like what's going on with the Epstein files, right? The
Yeah.
cover-ups, the people in authority not doing anything for, even if they know that you've been assaulted and have need help, need medical attention, you
Yeah.
might not get it. So yeah, it's very relevant for the conversation today to just show the similarities that between the military and the Epstein files. So
No, I get it because I know that in the military that they're really big on don't ask, don't tell. But I personally, since I never served,
well,
I never knew how deep that went. You know what I mean?
well,
Because
so
I've
so
heard.
that
Oh,
was don't ask about your sexuality. That was
yeah.
like a law put into place, about don't ask a person's sexuality. And I think unfortunately it's been kind of reinstated. But I'm I'm not up on
Yeah.
exactly what's going on with this administration. But yeah, there's definitely like with sexual assault, uh, there's not a lot of belief of survivors, and yeah, it does end up costing you your career in a lot of circumstances. And the military actually discharged over 30,000 soldiers who were showing signs of PTSD and traumatic brain injury, instead of providing them the medical help and attention and safety uh, from having these things. So not only from sexual assault, but from coming back from combat, they were a number of us were given an unjust discharge because of our signs of PTSD. So that has been addressed in Congress, and we have been reinstated our benefits. But you have to go and fight for that, and prove again that you're a survivor of PTSD. So it's some things really should change about that. And yeah, soldiers should feel, anybody should feel comfortable coming forward and saying
Definitely.
they're a victim of assault, because
Oh, definitely.
nobody asked to be assaulted, right? It's no shame on me or anybody else. The shame is on the person who thought they could violate and hurt somebody else. That's where the shame should be. They're the ones that should be scared that their name is going to be talked about and that they're going to be exposed.
That's 100%. That's 100% right. Like, and it's crazy to me knowing that the military, they promote the military as one of these great assets that we have, but so much gets covered up, and I never understood the reasoning behind that. And maybe you could shed a little bit of light on like why so much gets silenced, and like why people that do heinous things to like each other, they don't get pursued or persecuted.
So the military is, you're considered government property once you sign that. I think that they view people as commodities and not human beings. I believe that all systems, but in particular, the military system is set up, as a for-profit entity, and they might feel that if we take you out of service and get you the medical attention that you need, they might feel like that is a waste of money, and they to instate proper safety for soldiers, men and women, and to change the morality, and the 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 whole fraternization and things like that going on. I think they might just think that it's not cost worthy, but actually studies will show, even in corporate America, that people dealing with stress and burnout, which is very similar to PTSD, that if companies do again attack and give their employees the proper mental health and the proper time off, that the production goes up, it increases. So it's actually beneficial to give people proper health care and to create safer spaces in the long run, to create a healthy workplace. But the way the systems are right now, it just seems like we're going along with, things that have been set up for 100 years. And, the mindset really needs to change.
I completely agree with you on that, especially with like,
Mm.
the injustice that's happening, across the board. And yet again, referring back to your point, the military, comparing the military to like the Epstein files with the cover-ups, it's crazy
Yeah.
how people are willing to put, other people's lives in jeopardy, other people's careers in jeopardy, or all in order to save one person that did something heinous. You know what I mean? And that to me is kind of mind blowing. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
it really is. But I think it goes back to these systems of power where, the person in power is holding more weight than maybe 100 soldiers, or 100 children, right?
Yeah.
And that's where we need to have these conversations on mental health, and on what is a person worth, right? Humanity.
Yeah.
Do we have humanity for one person? Can one person be just as equal to the president or to a child, that has no power, no wealth right now? Can we treat everybody equally, just as our daughter or as our sons, right? We need to really bring humanity back to this world. That
That's a
would,
big fact.
yeah.
That's a big fact, especially right now with everything that's going on in the world. We definitely need to bring some,
Right.
some love, some kindness, and some,
Yeah.
some humanity back into the world, because right now it's not looking like we'll see next week.
Yeah, and
And
I bring this. I feel like a lot of the things that are happening, since I know PTSD so well, that I see a lot of people's behaviors, and I say, oh, maybe they have PTSD. They're lashing out. They're hating on this group of people. They're, causing violence, to another human. And I talk about police, right?
yeah,
There's a lot of police that are showing signs of PTSD, yet they're given weapons and told to go to work every day. And a lot of instances that I've seen is like, no, I can clearly tell, even though I'm not, not making
yeah,
a diagnosis, but I'm thinking, wow, that police officer probably had PTSD. Look how they're reacting on camera. And wow, they just need some mental health. They need, a break. They need to do some inpatient. They need to work out what's going on, and then they can go back to work. But
fuck,
just for hey, just not dealing with your trauma and then having all this anger is what's that going to do? You're just going to lash it out when really you got mental anger towards yourself and things going on, so there are solutions to this.
No,
But it
you're
really
definitely
starts with talking and being comfortable with talking about trauma.
no, you're
Yeah.
definitely correct on that too. And besides, like, seeking, therapy and like help to just to talk about like your mental health and your mental status. Also, when it comes to like the boys in blue, one, they're very underemployed, and then like they're overworked. Like I know cops that do 16-hour days, and they don't get like some of them are great people. I'm not gonna lie. Some of them are shitty people. I'm not gonna lie. But at the end of the
Right.
day, none of them get respect from the places that they serve. You know what I mean? New York is a
Yeah.
rough place. You know how that is, and we don't treat
Yes.
cops with the most respect here. So a lot of them do end up lashing out and having this anger towards civilians, I would say, and you could see it constantly, on body cam footage and all this other stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, for me, a PTSD expert, I I really can relate and to what they're doing, and I say, oh, this looks like PTSD.
Yeah,
What and why are they at work, right? They need to go and get some help and then go back to work. So especially dealing with the public, but and again, that's part of my mission is that some people don't feel comfortable getting help. Well, okay, I wrote a book of I have a complete list of PTSD therapies, and this is a nice self-help book where you can read it at home. It's quick, it's not a memoir, it's easy, easy to read, simple step-by-step guide. And I hope that a lot of people get the book and do some self-healing, start their journey, because the bigger problem is not dealing with your trauma. It's not going to be as big of a deal as you think when you start really diving into your healing, and it becomes not a big thing anymore because you've already gotten over it. You're living another day. You're here for a reason. So why let the rest of your life all be contingent on that one trauma, or that few traumas that has happened before? Why not try to be a healthier person moving forward, and letting go of that trauma?
no,
So,
true. And when did you start helping people out? Like what sparked the idea to like start helping veterans out and other people with PTSD, and when did you start all that?
so I founded my nonprofit in 2017, and that was in Maine. It was when I had my service dog for about a year, and he was so completely life changing for me. I mean, I had been on my healing journey for a while, but my service dog was like the last step, right? Like I still had some problems going to uh, doctor's appointments, going to different places that made me feel uncomfortable. Places with where I was alone. Like in a doctor's office
Yeah,
or medical. Even banks sometimes. Things places with authority where I felt like, okay, I'm not being listened to. I don't feel that I'm safe enough. But
yeah,
having Gunner, my service dog, really was the icing on the cake for my therapy and my healing. And I thought, wow, like, it's such a simple solution, a sustainable solution to get any survivor that wants help for their PTSD, get them a service dog. So, I founded Service Dog Strong, and it gave service dogs to sexual assault PTSD survivors. We took dogs from shelters and trained them and turned them into medical service dogs. And so that was my first, really, it was like giving back. It was like my last step, right? And the last steps in recovery is being like a mentor, right? Being a sponsor. So that was one thing that I really wanted to do, is like not keep my healing to myself.
I get
I
that.
wanted to share what worked for, yeah, I wanted to share what worked for me, and give my life, a new purpose, and move myself in a positive direction, because if I didn't, I could have easily been stuck back in my trauma and maybe old behaviors. But, when you're healed and you're healthy, that snowballs. You really want to keep doing positive, healthy things. So that was one of the things. And ever since stepping down from the nonprofit, now I'm like speaking on a global scale. I've written for Elsevier, the medical publishing company, and I'm
Dope.
speaking globally about PTSD, service dogs, and all forms of PTSD healing, because it's so important right now, to not just be in one nonprofit. The message has really struck a chord with a lot of people, and I'm so blessed to be able to share my message, and show people that recovery is possible, PTSD is treatable, and life does get better.
Not good. Definitely, the life definitely gets better once find the resources and the help that a person needs. When it when it came to your nonprofit, right? Did you guys like have like one particular breed of dog that you guys wanted to like use, or like was it like you would go to a shelter and like whatever dog that was young enough or like healthy enough you would take and you know besides house them,
Yeah.
train them up and give them to PTSD survivors?
So what made us different, in our model of training service dogs, was that we really tried for most of the dogs, to take them from shelters. So
Yeah.
we don't know their background. A lot of the service dog agencies and nonprofits today, will take a purebred dog, which can range from 10 to $20,000, and then they train them individually, and that could be even thousands more. But that's really not sustainable for somebody with a disability to pay that much for a service dog. So just in New York, or across the whole country, there are thousands of dogs in kill shelters that don't have homes. And
Yeah.
if you can take one of those dogs that's trainable, there's got to be strict criteria. Not every dog in a shelter is going to work as a service dog, but there are many that do. So you could take a dog that was set to be killed because they don't have a home and there's no space in the shelter, and then you could train them, and it's a beautiful solution to two problems.
It
So
is.
that was what made our model different. And I love the idea of bringing service dogs, from shelters. So, and people with PTSD, you can train your own. You don't need the nonprofit to do that. There are many ways to do that on your own. So it's a sustainable solution for those suffering.
No, I get that. I get that. And like, what suggestions do you have besides like, getting yourself a service dog? Um, what kind of suggestions or like what kind of help do you guys provide? People with PTSD. Like, how do you start helping people start to cope?
So I have just opened up my books for coaching individually. So
Yeah.
if anybody hears my story and resonates and would like some extra help, definitely reach out to me. But first off, there's my book, and then I have my journal. And, I said that this specifically helps people to do their own self-help. And there's a whole list of therapies that you can start to try. And I don't just advocate for traditional talk therapy, because really that doesn't do it for a lot of people. And I think that's why in the media, PTSD is kind of painted as this elusive disease that you can never get rid of. Because really, talk therapy is maybe solving half the problem. PTSD is not only a mental disorder, it's or injury. It's a physical. It's physical. It can hurt your finances. It's social, and of course it's spiritual. It's more than just a bad memory. PTSD actually rewires your brain, and you know there's physical changes from it. So counseling is a wonderful, wonderful thing, but it's not everything. You're going to have to, what I talk about in the book is do a whole human approach, which does encompass physical activity, spiritual, social, economic, and of course mental. So to really heal from PTSD, you're going to have to do a number of different therapies, not just one.
All right. Have you seen that like certain combinations of therapies work better than others, or is it more personalized to each person?
Yeah, it is very personal. And that's another reason why, I made a complete list because, I have a whole chapter on martial arts. Martial arts was
Ooh.
extremely, extremely healing and helpful to me. But recommending that for everyone, even though there's different forms, there's, for any activity level, but that might not be so appealing to everyone. But what I advocate for is that your solution is out there, and so if you give up, when you try something and you get discouraged, you say, "Oh, it's not going to work." Listen, you just didn't try the right thing. There's even, there's this new therapy, or it's not new, it's really been used for thousands of years. And that's why I like to talk about it for anybody who's interested. But the microdosing, right? The psilocybin therapy that has shown to be very supportive to PTSD survivors. And I believe that will be FDA approved soon. And, but
I believe that New York State is now on the list to actually do psilocybin therapy. Well, I read that like
right,
about a
that's
couple of days
great.
ago, yeah. And it's amazing
Yeah,
because you know, I've experimented with psilocybin, and I can tell you, hey, after a good trip, things do kind of come into perspective, and you want to treat people better, or
yeah,
at least when you're. I don't suffer from PTSD, but after a good trip, your brain does get rewired, and you kind of have
yeah.
this. You're more empathetic, I would say, and you're kind of more in tune
Mm,
for a little while, and it also helps with depression.
yes.
It's a big
Oh,
help
of
with depression.
course. And yeah, it sounds like you macro dosed. So, you can micro or macro,
Well,
but yeah,
I'm
either one
macro.
is
I'm macro.
right. Either one is very effective, but yeah, it's again, it's up to the individual. But yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a very safe therapy, and it's very effective. So yeah, that's wonderful that New York, and I think there's a couple other states that are starting to make that legal at least. So that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and for the people that don't know this, is like with psilocybin and aka shrooms, things of that nature. When the earth gives you something, a healing medicine, especially medicine that could heal you mentally, and yet again, not recommending this for everyone. You got to know yourself, but
Please consult
psilocybin.
your physician and your care team.
Yes, and so
Legal warning.
consult everybody that you need to before you do anything. That's
Yeah.
number one. Number two, just go in there with a clear mind and positive vibes. You want to be able to run through it and confront what's ever holding you back without a panic and without feeling like
Mm.
everything is tripping bad. You know.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think, and I think that's why some people choose to do the micro dosing, where you take a little bit each day. It's almost like a pharmaceutical that you're just going to take a little bit, and the effects might not be as great, right? But it's, over a long period of time.
Yeah.
So, that's, I think it's a wonderful thing. Like you said, it comes from Mother Earth, and so it's here for a reason. And I'm really glad that it's starting to become an option for people.
Yeah. And it's also really good too now that we're gaining more knowledge about natural healing, that medicine, that modern medicine, modern therapies are including these things that ancient civil I don't want to go with ancient civilizations, but older civilizations and indigenous people already kind of had the idea of.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, because that's the thing with modern medicine. Um, how long has this been studied? A new pharmaceutical out. Although it might help you, but there's again things like exercise that naturally boosts serotonin, oxytocin, and can rewire your brain if you stick to exercise on a daily basis, on a regular basis. That you can naturally override the trauma settings that you have. So yeah, there's a lot of natural ways that you can um, you know do with pharmaceuticals or without. Yeah, it's there's a lot of things out there that um, exercise has been
Yeah.
a huge thing for me, and that's why I really advocate with it, and don't want to say, okay, just do counseling. No, if you are not doing something physical to help your PTSD, then you're not going to recover. It's
I
just
got
not possible, because your body, your muscles have been tense, and your muscles, from your trauma and your reactions to trauma, your hypervigilance, your muscles are rewiring themselves as well, and they're used to being tense and protecting yourself. So if you don't have a safe space, massage, or again, some physical activity, uh, to calm your muscles as well. Even though your brain might be calm, your body is still reacting in that trauma response. So physical activity is just as important as mental clarity.
I was just about to ask how important it is to have like a physical routine as well
Yeah,
as the counseling and the therapy.
I would say, why would you not? Right? Why would you not do something that, again, physically rewires your brain and physically boosts your serotonin and your feel good hormones? PTSD is can cause depression, and you could be stuck in bed, and that was one thing that service dogs do. A service dog will physically, oh, I got to take the dog for a walk. So it's like that motivation to move your body. But yeah, if you're not taking care of your body as well, then your mind isn't going to be healthy. Both, it's all connected, like, and spiritually as well too. So um I recommend uh physical activity. If you're not ready for therapy, okay, then try the exercise. Or you've been in therapy for a while, and you're plateauing. All right, now add the physical activity and see how good you feel. So both, however you want to attack it, can really change your life.
No, I get that. I get that. And what has PTSD taught you about yourself?
Wow, that I like that question. I would say that it taught me that I'm a lot stronger and smarter than I think. Right? It taught me that I wasn't all the things that I thought I was, or however the trauma affected my life. For a long time, I believed a lot of the lies and a lot of the negativity that was surrounded by the trauma. But again, when I attacked it and really went into my healing journey and found the solutions, I realized that, hey, this is not, I'm the one in control, that I'm stronger than this. And that's, that's again, I feel very blessed. And that's why I wanted to share the solutions. It's like, maybe I was put through this, and I've always been really vocal. So,
Yeah.
God said, here, like, you're the one to share this message, so here you
No, I
go.
feel you. I got you, girl.
Yeah.
I got it. And like,
Yeah.
since you started your journey up, after your service and helping people, what kind of impact what kind of impact has your nonprofits and your other missions helped people? Like, what kind of impact have you made?
So the main nonprofit is still going today, by a bunch of wonderful ladies up there, and yeah, they've helped over 20 survivors to date, and so 20, so they've rescued 20 dogs. Um, and I don't know the direct stats right now. It could be more, but yeah. So and the thing with the just starting the nonprofit, though, people from all over the world reached out when they heard the idea, and this is why, again, I had to step down from the nonprofit, because I had to take the message to a lot more people that service dogs do help with PTSD. It's
Yeah,
medically proven, and again, I wrote that in the Elsevier book, and that it's there are solutions, right? And it's just it's a big message, and 2026, we're just starting to scratch the surface of that trauma doesn't have to cost you your life,
that's a big
so.
fact. And do you feel that, like, after people reach out to you and help you, that they kind of like get their strength back, and like they're motivated more now to like not only help themselves but help others?
Yeah. Oh, so definitely. The women I work with are incredibly strong, and I feel like stronger than me. That they've been through so much, and just to take the first step to reach out and want to better their life, like that's that is it right there. It really just takes that first step. Um, but I would say that it's it's a long process too. Even though
Yeah.
I wrote the book to make the process shorter, right? It took me a number of years, and it's 2026. It doesn't have to take forever to find healing. You don't have to be struggling, but to get to a point where, like me, you're advocating and speaking in front of people, that could take a while, and you might not want to speak in front of public about your story, and that's fine. As long as your advocacy could be, I am a fully present parent. I am a fully functioning, happy to be alive, person in this world. And that is giving back. That is taking care of yourself, taking care of others, so it doesn't mean that, you have to advocate on a huge level, but the fact that you find your healing and you find your health and happiness, that's huge. And
No,
that
I
can be
get that.
your advocacy, that you're not out here being angry and traumatized and spreading that anymore,
No, I get that 100%. And like, what
yeah.
advice would you give people, who have PTSD and are trying to turn their pain into purpose?
So again, I would say, don't feel shame, right? I mean, it's I always say all emotions are valid, but you don't have to feel ashamed of what you've been through, right? Again, so many of us have been through trauma, even people who don't talk about it, right? You don't know, right? PTSD, you can't tell if somebody has it. So
Yeah.
there's, more often than not, a lot of people that understand what you're going through. So there should be no shame. That I feel the power is that you take the first step and ask for help, and then you take the next step and get yourself help, and
Yeah.
that that's the real strength. um Acting like everything's okay and that you're just going to keep going, and wait till something happens, no, that's taking the easy way out, right?
Right.
You can need to really dedicate yourself to your own health, and it doesn't have to take forever, especially like I said, my coaching goes 3 or 6 months, and people see real change in that short amount of time.
I
So
get that.
it doesn't, yeah, it's 2026. We're not, doing healing for forever and ever. It can be very um client led, where if you put in the time and effort immediately,
Mhm.
then bam, it's better than doing it for a long time.
I get that. I get that. And do you see, like, when you work with people and your clients, right? Do you see that the whole shame factor, it takes like a little while for them to get over, or is it more of a like they'll get rid of it little by little throughout the duration of your court of your coaching?
I'd say it's individual, right? It kind
Okay.
of depends on the person's trauma, but the more us survivors speak out, it's I see that the quicker the change is coming. Like my friend Lisa Phillips, one of the Epstein survivors. She has been amazing sister survivor, talking about the Epstein files, and releasing them, and just that is showing us, and all of us survivors speaking out on our own, conversations and things like this. This is really creating a huge movement and showing the younger generation that, no, the shame is on the attacker. The shame is on the actual person who committed the crime and violation. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely correct. And I applaud everybody who's coming out right now, from the Epstein files, and and women and men that were sexually assaulted or assaulted in general, that are coming out and are holding their attackers accountable for their actions. You know what I mean? And like you said, it's 2026. We shouldn't be having to deal with things of that nature. And the more that we put out in the open, the better it is for everybody, because of the fact that you're showing everybody, hey, this person is, a hole, one, and two, they're not up to any good. So it's like you have to expose those people, and you have to come out and tell your truth, because if not, once you bottle that in, it leads to other problems down the road.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
definitely. I'm so glad uh that we're at this time where, more survivors are feeling comfortable speaking out. I mean, it comes with a great deal still of it could be career suicide, it could be personal, it still can come at the risk of friends and family not associating with you, being bullied online. But the truth will come out, and the more we do talk about it, I truly believe that people are going to finally realize that what's going on and put an end to it, right?
yeah,
If we don't talk about it, then it just keeps going. So again, all the survivors speaking out um, have a extreme amount of courage, and
yes, I
I'm
do.
so grateful.
Everybody's grateful because, they
Yes.
not only were they exposing one of the craziest, you know, cover-ups in this century and the last, is also
Yep.
exposing the full corruption of the government and the things that people are doing behind the scenes that, I'm not gonna feed into the whole sacrificing and all this other craziness. I'm gonna
Mm.
stick with, just on the trafficking portion of it. But
Yeah.
it shows that people with great power are usually corrupt, and so many people with power were involved in that. That's crazy. Simply
right?
insane. Yeah.
And I say if the system has to collapse, then let it collapse, because it obviously wasn't a good system to to not protect children, right?
That
And yeah, so it is what it is, and I really believe though that better things are to come the more we use our voice. And I made a post the other day that survivors, all we have is our voice. Sometimes
yeah.
we still don't have justice, accountability. We still don't have police on our side. Less than 1% of rapes see court or an actual conviction. So really all a survivor has is their voice, so we need to start using it. And make
That's a big fact.
the yeah, and make the people that feel access to another person's body is okay, make them feel uncomfortable the more we speak about it.
That's a big fact. That's
Yeah.
absolutely true. Roomies, you already know. Um, if someone's listening right now, right, who feels stuck in their own mind, what would you say to them?
I say you're not alone. You're definitely not alone. I know how you feel, and many other sister survivors know how you feel, right? And that it doesn't have to be that way, right? And this is why I put myself out there and have studied PTSD for so long, is that it it doesn't have to be as big as you think it is, so really get out of your mind and try something different.
I
See how
got
that goes. Try asking for help. Try physical activity. Try a new exercise. So I love martial arts. Is because
you.
it's
Yeah,
like it's a class, it's a community, and it holds you accountable. Try something new.
true.
So
100%.
yeah.
And
If not, you're
why
gonna
do you
get stuck in your head, and that's not a good place to be, because you think you're
definitely not.
alone and you're really not. But one
Yeah,
in three women have been assaulted, one in four men, and that's just reported, right? So
yeah,
it's very common. So you're not alone.
yeah. And why do you think so many people choose to suffer in silence?
I think it's the culture. It's
Yeah,
the our patriarchal society that is really and as I think we're shifting mindsets and slowly shifting out of that shame and blame the survivor type mindset. But yeah, I do think it's a lot of conditioning.
okay, cool. And I always ask this last question to all my guests. Do you have any final thoughts, words of wisdom, or advice for the roomies?
Yeah, so PTSD is treatable. That is the message, that never give up. PTSD is treatable, right? And like you say, we're not alone. Um, and that's, you're here for a reason. So I'm so glad I was able to talk to your audience today, and meet you. So yes, thank you so much.
Monet, you're the best. And roomies, remember, get up out your head. If something happens, go talk to somebody. Don't stay silent. Don't be a victim. Find your strength. And with that, peace out.